Hey guys, what's going on? This is Kyle at ProjectionHub, and today I'm going to be talking about how to do competitive research, competitor research for your business plan. So maybe you're planning to start a business and there's a section in that business plan that you need to talk about your competitors. And a lot of times people just don't know, like, well, what am I supposed to actually know about them? Or even worse, sometimes people are tempted to say, well, there is no competitors. And hopefully my video today will help give you some tools and some tips on how to actually make this section of your business plan, not only good for whoever's going to be reading it, if that's a potential lender or an investor or something like that, but also that it can teach you something, that you feel like you're actually learning about the competitive landscape that you're trying to compete in for your business. And so that's the hope of today. So as I mentioned, my name is Kyle. And before my time with ProjectionHub, I was an SBA loan officer for about 7 years. And so my time there looked like reviewing business plans, reviewing projections, helping people through the loan application process, reviewing their loan applications. And so just a lot of opportunities to review people's business plans and to get a sense of what was good in the business plan and what wasn't. And got to see many instances where people didn't do their homework when it came to competitor analysis, and some cases where they did a really good job with their competitor analysis, and how that impacted our decision as a lender. So a lot of context there. And then since then, I've been with ProjectionHub, and we've helped more than 50,000 small businesses and startups create financial projections and business plans for their startups and their business. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about ProjectionHub. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, today we're gonna be focusing on me giving you some tips and some resources on how to do competitor research and how to put that in your business plan. And I'm pretty sure every tool I'm going to show you today is free. There's an option to do it the free way. And so hopefully you can use this and not have to worry about spending any extra money. So if at any point you like this video, give it a thumbs up. That really helps us as a fellow small business. If you have questions, leave a comment down below or contact us directly at support@projectionhub.com. And if you're a startup or a small business and you're entering the world of how do I even do this? How do I write a business plan? If you're trying to get financing like an SBA loan, maybe you have questions on how do I get an SBA loan? Those are all things we can help with. And so we would love to hear from you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, here we go. So I'm going to use a few different tools and visual aids and all that kind of stuff to walk us through this video. Obviously, in an effort to keep this video on the shorter side, I can't do everything for you, but I am going to show you several different tips and tricks you can do. So if you have specific questions about, ideas to research competitors for your specific industry and your specific use case, just feel free to reach out or comment down below. And I will personally give you some pointers because, there's so many different industries and so many different businesses, and they may be online and they may have a brick and mortar store. Like there's so many different combinations that the tips that are going to work for you are going to differ a little bit. And really the tools that are going to work for you might be a little bit different. So I'm going to do my best to try and give you some universal solutions here in this video. Some of which of those tips might work for better for, like a Main Street small business, and some might work for an online based business or a national business or a global business. But yeah, probably more so you'll get more out of this video if, you're kind of more of the traditional small business and maybe, not like a tech cloud software looking to compete on a global scale. Like this probably isn't gonna be the best video for you. But if you're gonna be more of a true small business, even if you're an e-commerce business or maybe you're gonna have a retail space or something like that, service-based business, I think that this will be really valuable for you. So without going on and on, 2 quick points to kind of mention before we jump into this. And the first one is the best competitor research. And again, keep in mind, this is if you're doing it yourself, right? So I'm assuming you're not hiring a market research firm to do competitor analysis for you or anything like that. This is so you can do it on your own as a startup, save you some money. So the best competitor research is going to include expertise. So like, something about the industry you're trying to start a business in, and effort on your part as the business owner. So, whenever I work with a client on a business plan, and if they just want to look at me and say like, I want you to do like competitor research, it's like, well, there are things, including the tips I'm going to show you today, that I can do it. But at the end of the day, the amount of time it would take for me to learn as much as the business owner in their respective field would take very, very long time and might be impossible for me to do. So I'm hoping to tap into the expertise and the knowledge that the owner has in that industry. So if you're brand new to an industry, or even like a location where you're hoping to start your business and you're unfamiliar with that area, obviously there's going to be more risk associated with it because there's just going to be more blind spots. But really, it's just going to require more effort on your part, more homework, more commitment to being able to do that. So, but just a caution, if you have been doing whatever you're doing for a long time and you feel like you know the market like the back of your hand, the competitive landscape back of your hand, that's great and that's an advantage. But I would still commit yourself to doing the work to try to learn what maybe you don't know about the competitive landscape and maybe how it's changed. Second thing is, the purpose of competitor research is, or a key point is, to not assume that you're the only game in town. Even if you feel very strongly that you're the first person to be doing a specific thing in your market or your area, treat it with the conviction that, like, even if there's not another specific business for you to compete against, and we'll talk about this more in a little bit, if there's not a business doing exactly what you're doing, you're competing against a market, right? If it was really that easy to just pop up a business and there'd be no competition and you'd be successful instantly, somebody probably would have done it by now. And so, the purpose is to assume you're not the only game in town, make sure you know the players in the game, and then, so you're trying to prove that there's room in the market for you, or what you're going to do a little differently, or that there's a segment that, even though it's competitive, you still feel like there's room, you can kind of slide in there. Or if there really isn't any competition, we're trying to prove that, but you also need to kind of then prove, like, well, why is there no competition? Why has nobody done this yet? And we'll get into that. So those are just some disclaimers. Okay, stepping up to our first step, first kind of core key step, and this is going to be some good old-fashioned Googling. Now, again, keep in mind, I'm trying to approach this in a way that, someone could do this on their own, keep it free or as low cost as possible, and keep it approachable. Because a lot of small businesses and startups would just kind of opt to not do this because maybe they think it's overwhelming, or maybe they just think they know. But you need to have this, I think, to have a compelling business plan, part of a compelling business plan, and just to help you in, as you start a business and feel like you have all the information in front of you. So really as simple as good old-fashioned Googling, and these are some steps I would go through. One, look at the top results in the search, and even better when you do a search and it kind of gives you the Google map, and we're going to show you. So I'm going to do an example here, right? I'm going to assume I want to open up like a board game store, and even to put a nuance to it, I want to do a board game like pub, right? So think about a place where you can go and you can get a drink, with your friends, and you can play board games while you're there, and you can buy board games there or on their website or whatever, right? So let's think about it that way. So that's what we're going to talk about. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google Maps, and I'm based in the Indianapolis area in Indiana. So shout out to any Hoosiers out there if you're watching this video. But I'm just going to search board game stores near me, right? So here's point number one I'll make, that depending upon your type of industry, like if you're going to have a physical location, or you're going to, even if you don't have a physical location, but you plan to serve like a city or a specific segment, this step will work for you. If you're going to have an e-commerce brand that can sell to anywhere in the country, this isn't going to be all that helpful for you, right? Or at least your search is going to be different. Your search might be, you're searching specifically for your type of, e-commerce brand or store or product that you're competing in versus the near me trick, right? Okay, so that's one key nuance that's going to be different for this step, that you're going to have to you basically just want to search things to try and find as many of the people that are going to be operating in your space as possible. So this, in my example, my fictitious example, is going to be a really good way to do that. I can see all the people, businesses in the area that might compete with me, and then we've got some good things to go off of here, right? So I can see where people are located. I can see how well they're reviewed, how often they're reviewed. I can see some ones that probably don't make sense to be my competitor, right? There's a GameStop that's kind of like a video game store that's not really where I'm trying to operate in. And so let's assume we got this nice, just my familiarity with the city. We've got this nice pocket over here where there's not really a whole lot going on. There's a little less people over there, but there's still a lot happening over here. So let's just assume we're going to start our shop over here. This is where we kind of want to be. So that kind of leads me to think, well, even though, there's shops down here, those probably aren't really my direct competitor, because people that, live up here or even more central probably aren't driving all the way down to the south side. If you're familiar with the city, to get from up here to down here, you're looking at a 30-minute drive probably. So if you have all these options, someone's probably not going to do that. So that starts to limit more the businesses up here, right? So then as I started to scan through those and look at, okay, well, this one's a community mahjong center. Like, that's not really my competition. So I'm starting to weed out who are the actual competitors in the space. And, if you zoom in and out, some new things might pop up and you can get some more things. But if you're nice and zoomed out, you kind of get a nice layout of who's the case. So I had determined that I think that Moonshot Games is a true competitor. I think that Saltire Games is going to be a true competitor. And then there's one more over here. If I zoom in, this one right here is Hitherto Coffee and Gaming Parlor is a true competitor, okay? So again, all of these could be competitors, but when you're doing this, you kind of want to know all the options that exist and then get it boiled down to like 3 to 5 direct competitors. They're actually the people I'm going to be competing with for customers, okay? So now that I've identified those, I bring up my notes back here again. I've got them identified right here, okay? So first you're just, is there too many people? After you've kind of gotten a lay of the land, are there a lot of people competing? Who are the most direct ones? Get those kind of outlined, right? Now you want to really try to do a deep dive on each of those direct competitors. So look at what they're actually offering. You could, like, just shooting from the hip here, this one I think is hosting more like tournaments, and they have a shop so you can go in there and buy some things, and you can buy cards. The Saltire one is more of like a family store, so you can get games, you can get toys for kids. This Hitherto Coffee one is like they sell board games, but also it's a coffee shop, so you can go in there. So they all kind of have their nuances and their own different offerings. And then I could see, how their pricing differs on the products where they do overlap. Just, is it typical, or are they marking it up a lot? If they're selling a drink or a beverage, like how do those prices look at? How good is their website experience? So if I move my face here a little bit, we can see each of their websites. So this feels more kiddie. It works fine. They have e-commerce on here. Moonshot, is similar. They've got games you can buy right here online, on the website. You can see these are more of like your true kind of like hardcore gamers. And then we've got the coffee shop version where it's very clear they're focusing more on the coffee shop. So you can just kind of see, I could spend time going through their menus, and you should do this. Learn as much as you can about each of them and your competitors. And just figuring out their, so if you're, depending upon your industry, if you find your direct competitors have really terrible website experience, like that's an opportunity for you, right? So you want to keep that in mind. Or maybe they do great at the website side of things. So now you kind of know what the bar is, right? If your direct competitors do a really great job at the website, like the first 3 I picked out, 2 of them have pretty solid websites for e-commerce. One is clearly going more the coffee shop route. So I know that if I want to compete in the e-commerce space, I at least need to be as good as them in that arena. And you don't want to be worse than that. I'm not going to show these as an example, but maybe they're really active on social media and they have a lot of engagement there. Maybe they've built a nice community there. And then I think one of the biggest ones, without actually me going to their stores, that can kind of give me some insight is to go through their reviews, right? So just to give you an example, if we go into this Moonshot Games one, right? Let's kind of see what the reviews look like. 4.8, 420 reviews. That's really high. They have the owner's clearly involved. That's a nice compliment. You're in there, you're probably interacting with the owner directly. Best prices, great staff, great location. If I go to newest here, I can see they get pretty regular reviews. Just 2 weeks ago, pretty poor experience purchasing sports trading cards, but then they get, some nice response from the owner. So it's very clear that they care a lot about the customer experience. People enjoy the experience there. And so that's a strength of theirs. And so part of this process is you really want to give them credit where it's due. If they are on top of it, then you want to acknowledge that in your notes, right? So I should say, when you're doing all of this, like just start a document and just start making notes of all of these things. And then you'll be able to convert that into a nice section in your business plan. So you want to go through their Google and Facebook and Yelp, and the reviews are probably going to be the point where you can kind of see what are the frustrations people have with their experience there, and that will reveal a lot of their weaknesses. Or if you start to see people praising the same thing over and over again, that's going to become part of their strength. So you really want to identify, what are they doing well, what are they not doing well, not to be rude, but just that could convert to an opportunity for you as you're doing that. So, and be humble. Don't assume that everything they do is bad and you could do it better. You should acknowledge, especially a lot of these have been in business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. They're clearly doing something right, and they have a lot of really great reviews. So that's stop number one, is doing all of this step. And again, this is just Googling, spending time going through their websites, their reviews, their social media platforms, finding their prices, all of that stuff, and just making notes for who the most direct competitors are going to be, and start drawing conclusions from that. So that's going to be step number one for your competitive research. Step number two, and this is going to especially go towards those, like if you're starting something that's going to have a physical location, then you could really do this. If you are going to have a purely online brand, or maybe a service-based business, this is going to be a little bit more difficult to do, but still some things you can do here. And so we're going to do some undercover work. This is not shady, I promise you, at all. It's quite smart to do. But first one's going to be, and we've already talked about this, find out what they do well and what they don't do well. So from reviews, that's going to be the advantages that you might have or opportunities for you to compete. And so gather what you can from the reviews. And then I should clarify, detective work means like you're actually going to go interact with these businesses. And you're going to see right here, secret shop if you haven't been a customer. And so we need to confirm with our own eyes, what are they doing well and what are they not doing well, and kind of experience that. So again, if you complete locally, it's worth the effort to do the detective work. Go be a customer, go support their business. Now, I would actually recommend going in and buying something and making sure, you have that experience with them. So I know that's not free to do that way, but if you're at all interested in the type of business you're trying to start and you have the ability to actually go and be a customer at your competitors, that's going to give you a lot of information. That's going to be super helpful for you. So I would recommend doing it. And you probably already have, right? You probably are a customer to some of these businesses, and that might have contributed to your idea of like, well, I could do this and I could do it better. So give credit where it's due. Observe what they do. So just be very observant when you're in there. Observe what they're doing, how they're treating the customers. Is there any part of the purchasing process that was weird or clunky? Were their prices good? How did other people act? Did people want to stay there? Were people happy with their experience? And depending upon your industry, like if you're an auto repair shop, a lot of times people aren't super happy to be an auto repair shop, right? So focus on, well, how are they treating the customers? Are they serving them complimentary things to try and improve their experience, even though they may be frustrated to be there? Are you a medical office and people aren't excited to be there? Like, what's the lobby environment like? So obviously I can't show an example for every one of these businesses, so it's going to be different. So just be observant on, be familiar. You're familiar with the industry. What are challenges that it represents, and what are those competitors doing to go above and beyond to make it a better experience for the customers they're serving? So I like this example, keeping in line with our theme here. Imagine you really love a card game and you're thinking while you play it, like, it would be really fun if the game did this, right? Or if the rules did this, or if this was incorporated into the game. And then you decide to create your own version of that game, and you add in those core elements, and you add in your own improvements and twists, right? That's a lot of times what forming your own business is going to be like. Unless you're doing the first thing that's never been done before, which there's not a lot of brand new things not being done anymore. Of course there are still some of those things, but more often than not, your business is going to exist in some capacity somewhere else, but you're making your own version of that you think people will resonate with, and hopefully people will support that. And so that's really what you're doing. So take note of the customer experience, yours as well as the other experience people are having. Depending upon how brave you're feeling, you can talk to other people that are there. Don't ask them like, hey, I want to start a business that competes with these people. What do you think? But just ask them questions about like, yeah, do you come here often? Or, are you regular here? Just ask some questions. And then 4, what is their secret sauce? right? So their unique thing that makes them special that you can't and shouldn't try to replicate. So maybe there can be the core elements of maybe all of your competitors, you and your competitors are going to sell board games, right? But I even talked at the beginning, one clearly seemed to be focused towards families. One was more towards the hardcore gamer tournament type stuff. One was a coffee shop, right? So they all have their own unique things, but make note of those things and maybe the less obvious ones. What is the part of their, it's kind of like the Chick-fil-A experience. Like every other place could try having really great customer service, but at the end of the day, it's just like Chick-fil-A is always better. The customer service is always better. And everyone should try to have customer experience, but a good customer experience and customer service, but like they just can't replicate what Chick-fil-A has managed to do with that. So just be observant of that. What is their secret sauce? Is it a tangible thing? Like they sell a specific thing? Or is it an intangible? Is it a culture thing? Is it a community support thing? So just recognize what do you appreciate about it and what do they do really well? And be keeping in mind, like, what's your special thing going to be? And then lastly here, ask around to those you know. So assuming maybe you have some friends or some family that are interested in the same thing that you are, or familiar with the type of business you're going to start, or like in my example, my fictitious board game shop or like pub, I've got friends that like to play board games, right? So I should ask them about some of these competitors. I should ask, have you ever shopped there before? Have you heard about them before? What did you like about their products and services? What did you not like about their experience? Is it that it's far away? Is it that it's really busy? Is it that it smells weird? Like, find out those details and what their experience was like there. And again, all of these are notes. You should just be compiling notes about your competitors. And eventually we will condense that into something useful for a business plan. So that's step 2, is going to be do detective work. Now, step 1 is still detective work. It's just more like from an arm's reach, right? You're Googling things, you're searching things on the internet, you're scouring their websites, you're looking at reviews, all that kind of stuff. And then 2 is more like, if you have the ability to, this is more like, I guess you want to call it primary research or in-person research, as much as you can interact with the businesses directly and, talk to people who interact with the businesses directly and have takeaways from that and how that will inform your business plan. Okay, moving along. And this is kind of keyword research, but it's a little bit different. So this is kind of one step further, and this is more about proving the demand. So competitor research is more like researching the supply. So not to get too much into the macroeconomics here, but understanding your competitive landscape, that's supply, right? The services provided, the products provided, the experiences provided. They are providing those things. So that's the supply that's available to the customers. Every business requires both supply and demand. And so we've already identified, like, okay, there's clearly a supply. There's several board game stores around here. Several of these aren't really what we're interested in, but there's at least 3 direct competitors and probably a few more scattered throughout the city that I think are true competitors to what we do. So that's our supply, right? We know what the supply is. So the other part that you need to be able to prove in your business plan and when you're talking to a lender is, well, what's the demand? So clearly the supply, but how much of it do people want? And there's a couple of things that we can do. One is looking at industry keyword trends. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? And one thing we can do that's a free solution is you can make a free Google AdWords account, and you don't have to pay for an ad in order for this to work. Although I have heard rumors if you don't pay for an ad, it might generalize some of the data a little bit, but you can still use it nonetheless. And what this allows us to do is basically create simulations to see how often are people searching for these things in specific locations. And so I've set these locations to be the cities kind of close to where our fictitious shop is going to exist. This is where I think the customers live. And then I've put in searches like board games near me, board game cafe, card shop near me, you get it. And then we search for that, and it's going to show us some interesting things here. It's going to show us, keyword actual search ideas. So these are things that people are searching for. It's going to estimate how often those things are being searched per month. And then it's going to show us, and there are additional columns of information you can add to this, but then it's going to show us some trend data. So I can see down here, if I go towards board game stores near me, retailers near me, trading card shops near me, we can see that they've got a healthy amount of search. Now, clearly there's more people than this that are shopping for these, but these probably indicate new customers. Every month, these are new people looking for these things. And then, so there's, opportunity every single month. And then we can see year over year, look how much those are growing. 200% increase year over year for people looking for board game stores near them. So there is demand. Now, this is an imperfect method. Maybe this is really growing, but there's still more board games shops that are sustainable. But this is a positive outlook, right? If that's growing year over year, that means there's going to be more and more customers. That means they might be able to support an additional store. And then another thing that's promising is that this competition, that means people paying for advertising, for Google Ads. And so if it's low, that typically means if competition is really fierce, that means people really want to show up for those keywords. There's probably going to be at least medium here, maybe even high competition. So you can see like Pokemon cards near me. That's very popular. So people probably that's probably highly competitive. But when it's low, that means not a lot of the businesses competing in this area are paying for ads, which means that they don't have to do paid advertising in order to get customers. So that's a good thing. So that's an example of, yes, in my fictitious example, it seems like the industry, the market that I want to operate in is growing. There's an opportunity that. If the numbers weren't promising, if those were negative trends or really low search volume numbers, then the tone of the business plan has to shift, because that means demand is low or at least not growing. And so that would imply like, maybe there isn't room for another one in the market, and that would mean I need to steal market share from somebody else. So it just changes the tone a little bit. And then B, this is probably the most advanced thing I'm going to show you, and I don't necessarily you don't have to do this, especially even in my example, this probably isn't going to be all that helpful, but especially if you're an online based business, then this is going to be your best bet. Like this is, besides that keyword research I just showed you, doing some competitor website analysis is going to be probably the most helpful thing. So there's dozens of these tools, maybe not dozens, there's a couple really good ones, but I'm using SimilarWeb, Ahrefs is another one, SEMrush is another one. There are lots of these tools that are basically like website analyzer tools. And so these give you the ability to put in websites, and then we can see things like how often are people going there, where do their customers come from, like geographically, what device are their visitors coming to their website on, how are they paying for their traffic, or is it organic traffic, what keywords are they ranking for? So a lot of really powerful data when your business will exist entirely online. So if you're trying to start an e-commerce brand or a SaaS tool or a mobile app or different things like that, this is probably going to be really powerful for you. So, but for example's sake, I put in my 3 competitors just so I can get some data on their website, so I can see, who's getting the most traffic as I kind of expected based on their website. This, Moonshot Game Store has a lot of traffic. See, we can probably the most, they're all in the United States, which makes sense. We can see primarily they're getting their traffic from organic search, which would be people Googling things. Some direct, or a good chunk of direct, would mean people are searching, typing in their website directly and then going to it. So they kind of know where they're trying to get to. But yeah, so you can see organic is definitely, but none of them are paying for ads. As I alluded to earlier, that's a good indication that there's probably a healthy demand in this market if they're not really having to pay for the traffic that they're getting. Or if they're paying for it, they're doing it somewhere else that this isn't picking up, like billboards or something like that, which I doubt that. So that's an example of a thing you can do for the website. So, okay, so those are the 3 core things that if I was trying to do competitor research on my own for a startup business plan for free, basically, or as low cost as I could, those are the 3 things that I would do. I would do Googling like crazy. I would, so just internet sleuthing, I would do secret shopper. So, or talk to people, ask friends and family, go to the businesses, make observations. I would do that second. And then third, I would do some of the keyword search analysis, website deep dive stuff to draw some more conclusions. So some bonus tips to wrap this up, and then I'll show you, or maybe I'll just show you this now. Right here, I have our free retail business plan template. If you go to the description of the video below, I've linked, we've got, I don't know how many now, 70, 80 free business plan templates for various industries. And so I have one of those open right now. And I just kind of put in, if I had compiled all of those notes, and again, I could probably make a whole other video just demonstrating how I went from notes to how you go from the notes to actually getting it ready for a business plan. This is not polished by any means here, but just as an example's sake, I'm in a market analysis section of a business plan, and you could just grab graphics from those different tools I was showing you, organize things, put in information like I was talking about their offerings and their prices, or talk about their takeaways from the reviews. You can grab screenshots from the reviews. So basically you're just taking all of that hard work that you did and putting it in a nicely packaged thing in your business plan so that it's becoming an asset to your business plan. So it was helpful to you because you learned a ton, and now we want to make sure it's an asset for us when, a lender's looking at this, or someone, we are trying to transfer that confidence and that knowledge to whoever's reading our business plan based on the hard work that we just did. So we want to make sure that, it's compelling for someone to be like, oh, wow, yeah, they really know what they're talking about here. That's what we want to try to convey. So we talk about what they do well, opportunities for us, aka what they don't do well, what their secret sauce is, and then, include your keyword research, grab screenshots in here, put in some narrative around that. Like there's clearly growth in things, searches related to what we're trying to offer. You can grab things from the website. And so that's just like really quick insight into the work is doing the homework. The work is doing the detective work. The easy part is grabbing the screenshots and some of your findings and putting that into your business plan from all of your notes. Again, I could do a whole video on showing you how to make it look nice in the business plan, but really the hard part is just doing the homework. And if again, we have a bunch of these free business plan templates, you can go grab your own. You can see here, it goes into detail on like the financial projections and how to do the projections and all that stuff. So again, this is linked down in the description below. You can go grab your own copy of it there. And yeah, let's hop back over. I think I had a couple more points, just a couple bonus tips. So one, what makes you stand out from the competition? So if you're going to do all of that, it's one thing to make sure you can, convince your reader of the business plan that you know what you're talking about with the competitors. But what you really need to drive, so you need to prove to them that you know the competitive landscape, but then what you need to do on top of that is prove that you have something that's going to stand out. So, in our example, we talk about, we're gonna have games in the store, but we're gonna cater more towards like the pub atmosphere, right? So it's gonna be maybe adults, it's gonna be casual, it's gonna be kind of like a bar. That's very different than the three competitors I just talked about. So that could be our slice. That could be our USP, as they call it, the unique selling proposition. So you need to do this work on the competition to prove that the thing you're going to do differently is actually different than your competitors. And then second bonus tip is positioning. So you need to acknowledge, is the market crowded? So I guess we talked about this a little bit earlier. Depending upon how you answer this question, needs to change the tone of your business plan a little bit, right? Or at least this section of the business plan. Is the market crowded? If yes, acknowledge that and then focus on the fact that your unique selling proposition and what your advantage is based on what you know of your competitors. So if there's not a ton of growth in that search volume that we talked about, but nobody's doing what you're going to do, then that's what you really want to focus on. That you think that there's still an opportunity for that. So maybe there's not a growth in board games, but there's a growth in lounges or parlors or whatever you want to call it, or bars. And you can combine those, right? And that still sets you apart. Is the market wide open? If yes, acknowledge that and then focus on the opportunity and advantages based on the lack of direct competition, right? So, but the big one here is going to be that you need to prove that there's demand. So if there's no game in town or very little game in town, then you need to answer the question of, well, why is there not any game in town? But if we can still prove that there's demand, or maybe it's a very new concept and it's just gaining traction, then we need to drive that point home. And never say in a business plan, we don't have competition, because there's always competition. Anytime I work on a business plan with a client and they say, well, we don't really have any competition, or, you know, we can sell to anybody, we don't really have competition. You know, I always challenge them on that, because maybe there's not someone that's doing exactly what they do, but there is somebody else out there who is competing for a dollar from your customer that could have come to you, right? There's not infinite amount of dollars for every one of your customers. And so you're always competing against that. And so maybe it's not a board game shop. If I'm going to be the first board game shop in town, well, maybe there is a arcade in town, right? But that's the same audience. And so I still have to compete for those people. So just be mindful of the fact that you're always competing. If it's not a direct competitor, you're competing against the market, you're competing against demand, and make sure you acknowledge that in your business plan. So there you have it. That is, I guess I didn't even put a number on it. We can call it 3 free tips for doing competitive research for your startup business plan. Grab your copy, your free copy of a business plan template, link down in the description below. If you need help with projections or your business plan or getting an SBA loan, those are all things that we can help you with. More information on our website or down the link below. And again, like the video if this was helpful to you. Consider subscribing to the channel. We're all about helping people get their businesses started, get them funded, and we've got a lot to offer there. So yeah, wish you the best of luck with your business plan, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.